Hello and welcome back to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Rakos and today I will teach you the game Shackleton Base, designed by Fabio Lopiano and Nestore Mangone. In this game, 1 to 4 players are constructing a base on the surface of the moon. So far, this has been the best gamers game I've tried from this year's Essen Spiel. Let's start with a quick overview and then we continue with the rules of the game.
In the game, players become agencies competing to expand their presence on a moon base. During the 3 rounds of the game, players will be using their astronauts to construct base modules, to exploit the crater for resources, assign them into their base to activate ongoing effects, fund projects, and perform corporate actions. Players gain points from their cards, their reputation and their buildings, but also by satisfying the goals of 3 neutral corporations. On every game, you use 3 out of 7 different corporations, which add to the game different mechanics, different project cards, special corporate actions, and specific ways to score victory points. While operating on the moon, players must also manage the crater's common power supply. At the end of the 3rd round, there is final scoring, and the player with most victory points will win in Shackleton Base. At first, place the board in the middle of the table. This here is the command action area applicable for a 4-player game. In a 2 or a 3-player count, take this tile and cover the area using the applicable side. I will be setting up for a 3-player game, so I will use this side. Another player count sensitive area is the energy track. In a 2, 3 or 4-player count, you place the energy marker on space 4, 5 or 6 respectively. I will have to place it on 5. Create a general supply with astronauts that come in 3 colors: titanium, rare earth and credits next to the play area. All these components are regarded to be unlimited. Take the solar panel tokens and use them to fill all panel spaces around the crater. Then take the shuttle tiles and separate them based on the number on their back. Place them in face-down stacks next to the board and shuffle each one of them. Next, you need to set up the 3 corporations that will be used in the game. You normally select 3 of these at random, but for your first games you can use the recommended sets.
At this point, you should know that each corporation comes with one of these rule sheets, which includes all related information, including their special setup. For this video, I will demonstrate Artemis Tours, Moon Mining and Selenium Research, which are the recommended corporations for your first games.
For Artemis Tours, you need to place the corresponding corporation board next to the main board and then fill all of these spaces with the 12 tourist meeples. If this is a 2-player game, remove these 3 meeples from the game. Take the 5 Artemis Tours Corporation tokens, place 4 of them in these spaces and leave the last to the side for now. For every corporation, some of the gold spaces might not be available depending on your player count. For your convenience, cover these spaces with any component. Shuffle the 9 Artemis Tours project cards, create a face-down stack and then reveal the top 2 cards face-up. For moon mining, again you use the corresponding board and then you create a supply of cargo tokens and helium tokens. The number of cargo tokens depends on the player count. Use 6, 8 or 10 tokens in a 2, 3 or 4-player count respectively. I will use 8. Place the corporation tokens and the project cards as we explained before with Artemis Tours. For Selenium Research, use the corporation board and create a supply of sample tokens. Separate the experiment tiles based on their back, shuffle every stack and then place the stack for the first round in this area and reveal the top 3 tiles, placing them here. Randomly choose one of the corporation tokens and set it aside as you did with all other corporations. Find the second copy of this token and remove it from the game. Then place the rest of the tokens on the indicated space, alternating the type. So you should not place 2 same type tokens, one next to the other. At this point, whichever corporations you chose, you should have 3 corporation tokens set aside. These must go to the 3 slots around the central sector. Moving on to the player's setup, each player chooses one of the colors and then takes the personal board, which is the player's base, and the components corresponding to that color. Players place their structures to the corresponding slots. Each player has 5 domes, 3 workshops, 3 laboratories and 1 headquarters. Players get 3 goal markers which are placed here. A reputation marker which is placed on space 0 of the reputation track, and the victory point marker placed on space 0 of the victory point track. Select a player at random to be the starting player who places their turn order marker on the leftmost space of this track. The rest of the player turn order is determined clockwise. Take the agency leader tiles and randomly pick tiles equal to the number of players. I would have to use 3 tiles. Then also randomize the side of the selected tiles. Now, in player turn order, each player performs the following. First selects one of the tiles, placing it next to their play area. Then places their leftmost dome from their base on one of the 6 sectors adjacent to the central hex. Every sector has 1 slot for a dome, 1 slot for a workshop, and 1 slot for a laboratory. This means that all players must select different sectors for their dome placement. After placing the dome, the player places the next available panel on the sector's panel space. The first panel taken is always this one, and then you use panels in a clockwise manner. Finally, the player selects and activates a corporation token adjacent to the selected sector. This grants the player the next tourist meeple. Tourist meeples must always be placed on a vacant base slot. All players start with 1 vacant slot here, and the dome they just placed creates another such slot. This one grants the player the indicated sample tokens, and with this one here, the player gets 1 helium token from the supply. Important! In 2-player games only, take 2 of these dome buildings from a player color that is not used and cover these spaces that have this indication, and then also place the next 2 panels in these sectors as well. When all players are done, the game will be ready to start.
A short pause in the video here to remind you that if you haven't done already, please subscribe to this channel. It costs nothing but really makes a difference to me and this channel. Also hit that bell button so you get notified of all our future videos.
The game is played in 3 rounds, and every round is split to 3 phases. The shuttle phase, the action phase, which is the main phase of the round, and the maintenance phase. In the shuttle phase, you take the shuttle tiles of the current round, now the first round, and randomly reveal tiles equal to the number of players plus 1, so I will reveal 4 tiles now. Now, in reverse turn order, each player selects one of them and collects the resources and astronauts indicated on the tile. After all players make their selection, the player turn order is redetermined based on the number indicated on the top of the tile player selected. The player who selected the tile with the lowest value will become the first player, and so on and so forth. Finally, take the astronauts depicted on the tile that was not selected and place them on Lunar Gateway area. After you place them, you remove all astronauts in excess of 4 for each of the types. So if that were the situation, I would have to return these workers back to the supply. These limits are only checked in this phase. In other phases, they can't be exceeded. In the action phase, players alternate turns using player turn order, and on their turn they must use one of the available astronauts on their shuttle tile and perform an action. There are 3 main action areas: the crater, the command actions area, and the Lunar Gateway. I will start explaining the command actions area. The command action area includes 3 different actions. The top row is related to the build structure action, the middle row is for funding a project, and the bottom row is to perform up to 3 corporation actions. When you use the command actions area, you select one of the 3 actions and place your astronaut to the leftmost empty space of the row, paying any credit costs indicated on the space in advance, and then proceed performing the action. Very important, you can use any color of astronaut to perform any of the 3 actions, but if you use the astronaut that matches the color, you will also perform the bonus action indicated on the end of the row. Let's analyze the top row action, Build a Structure. This is probably the most complex action. When you build a structure, you select any structure from your base, pay its cost, and then place it on the crater. For example, the cost to build 1 laboratory is 3 titanium, 1 rare earth, and there must be an available point of power to be consumed. This means that if the marker were in the leftmost space, I could not build the lab unless I generate some energy first. Speaking of energy, there are a couple of rules that I need to explain. First of all, you can raise the energy level even if you don't need the energy. How can you do that? In two ways. One is you can spend one rare earth to buy the next clockwise panel. Doing so increases power immediately by the amount shown in the space, now 2 power, and then the panel is placed in the central sector. Another way to increase power is if the energy marker is too low in the 3 first positions. If that's the case, you may spend credits to buy energy as shown in the pictogram. So if the marker was on 1, I could spend 3 credits to raise the marker by 3 steps, and then, if I wanted, I could also buy a panel to raise it more. Buying a panel by spending rare earth can be done only once and only if you perform a command center action. Buying energy by spending credits, if the level is low, can be done regardless of the action you take on your turn. Also, when you raise energy, you gain 1 reputation for every step on a space with this reputation symbol. So now that I moved the marker these 3 spaces, I would also increase my reputation by 2. The role of the reputation track will be explained later. The last point about energy is that if the marker level is too high on the last 2 spaces, you cannot buy a panel as indicated by this symbol. Now that we know everything about energy, let's come back to building. So, after you pay the costs, you must place the building on any sector that has no other buildings of yours on an empty slot for the building size. If the selected sector is not already powered with a panel, then you must place one. You can take one for free from the central sector if there is one available, otherwise you must buy one and place it straight away on the sector after you raise the power level as normal. As you construct buildings, you reveal empty spaces on your base that can be powered with astronauts. At the time you construct a new building, you may immediately move astronauts from other slots on your base into the ones just revealed. You normally move your astronauts around in the maintenance phase, but you also get this as a bonus after building. Every building has a special function. This workshop provides a bonus credit discount for each blue worker placed in its slots, applied to the placement costs when you perform a command center action. So, if that were the situation and I was performing, let's say, this action, I would pay 1 credit instead of 2. Functions of other workshops will be explained a bit later. Domes are built from left to right and give you bonuses in the maintenance phase if you place astronauts in their slots. After you construct the 3rd dome, you perform a corporation action as a bonus. After you build the 4th dome, you may fund a project, and after you build the 5th one, you gain 5 victory points as an extra bonus. Funding a project and performing corporation actions will be explained later. When you build labs, you gain an immediate bonus. The middle lab grants you 3 credits. The top lab grants you the resource of the sector where it's constructed, and the bottom one the bonus of 1 corporation token adjacent to the sector where it's constructed. Labs also award victory points in final scoring, but we will leave that for later. Every player has a headquarters. This building takes all spaces of an empty sector and automatically boosts the power of the player's leader tile. These tiles show a power. The top part of the tile indicates an initial power, and the bottom part indicates a boosted version of the power which can be used after the player's headquarters is built. These powers are pretty straightforward. For example, this player can use this power when performing the construct a building action, which is to buy a titanium or rare earth with 3 credits. After constructing the headquarters, this player may buy even both of the resources for 2 credits each. I will not explain all tiles, you may pause the video now to check them out. The special bonus of this action, if you use the yellow engineer astronaut to perform it, is that you also trigger the effect of 1 of the corporation tokens adjacent to the sector where you built earlier. So, In this example, I could choose to gain 1 helium. If there are empty token slots around the sector, you may instead select one of the corporations and take its next topmost token, place it in the sector and gain that bonus. So, I could select Artemis Tours and place this token here and gain the next tourist. Very important, if you choose to add a new token, you may not select a corporation that already has one of its tokens in the sector you are currently operating. So, I could not select Moon Mining Corporation and place another helium token here. Now, there is a tricky part here you need to understand. I chose to place an Artemis token, and as you can see, the sector right next has now 2 adjacent Artemis tokens. However, this is not forbidden because you only check the sector you are currently operating. Moving now to the next action, which is to fund a project card. You can select any face-up card of any corporation, but you must attend to the requirements indicated in the bottommost revealed pictogram on the corresponding corporation board. As you can see, these requirements increase as you place more of that corporation tokens on the board. For example, to buy one of these cards, I need to spend 5 credits, and also the power level must be at least on 5, and then it will be also decreased by 1. If you have red astronauts in this workshop, then for each one the power requirement is lowered by 1 and you also gain a discount of 1 credit. So if that were the situation on my base, I could buy any of these cards by paying 3 credits instead of 5, and I could still do it even if the power level was on 3. I would still drop the power by 1 though. Then you gain the card, receive any instant bonuses depicted in the top left corner, if there are any, and place the card next to your play area. Finally, you reveal another card from the stack, so that again there are 2 face-up cards for that corporation. Apart from instant bonuses, cards have additional effects. These are described on the card, and of course I cannot explain all of them. This here is a power that can be used whenever you fund the project. This one has a power for final scoring, that one an ongoing effect, and this one gives you an extra corporation action just for you. Now, if you perform the action using a red technician astronaut, then you immediately trigger 1 corporation action as a bonus. We will see corporation actions with the next command action. As its name suggests, with this action you perform 3 corporation actions. These can be found on your cards, as we saw just before, on corporation boards, but also on the reputation track. Corporation actions on the reputation track are unlocked as you progress on it. Initially, the only reputation corporation action is to advance reputation twice. But if my marker were here, I could perform any of these actions as one of my corporation actions. And if I performed this one and advanced 2 steps, my second action could be this one, as it is now unlocked. Important, you may not trigger a reputation action more than once in your turn when you perform this action. Also, corporation actions on your cards that have this symbol can only be performed once on every round. After you use them, you rotate them like that, and these will be rotated back in the maintenance phase. Other corporation actions can be triggered multiple times, even on the same turn. Corporation actions on the reputation track are very simple. With this one, you gain the bonus of any corporation token placed on the board. It's worth to say now that if you are on the top of the reputation track, for every step forward you cannot take, you gain 1 victory point. Let's check corporation actions shown on corporation boards now. In Selenium Research, as a Corp action, you can spend the samples required on any one of the visible experiment tokens and collect it, triggering all bonuses on the tile and then replenishing the empty slot with another tile from the stack. In Moon Mining, you select any available shuttle slot that has no cargo token on it, spend the required resources and gain the benefits in the bottom. Then you place a cargo token on the selected space. With a Corp action of Artemis Tours, if you have tourist meeples on your base, you can move them to slots of specific Artemis tourist cards and gain the slot bonuses. Now, if you perform this action using a blue scientist astronaut, then after performing the Corp actions, you take one of the available astronauts in the lunar gateway area and place it in an empty astronaut slot of your base. If there is no slot available, then this bonus is for fate. The next action is to play in the lunar gateway area. You play one of your astronauts on your shuttle tile into the area to gain any other astronaut from the area except than the actual one you just played. So I could play my red astronaut and choose to gain a red astronaut since there is another one there. The new astronaut is then placed in an empty slot of your base. If you have no empty space to place the new astronaut, you don't get it from the area at all, but you are still able to perform the action just for the following extra bonuses, which is to gain 3 credits and perform a corporate action as shown on the pictogram for this action. The last action is to explore the crater. You use one of your available astronauts on your shuttle tile and place it on one of these spaces around the crater, which is empty. Then all sectors in line, as pointed by this pictogram, that also have at least one building are activated and you gain a bonus which depends on the type of astronaut you placed. Before we explain the bonuses, there is also a cost in credits as indicated on the space you place the astronaut. This cost is paid for every activated sector to the player that has covered the most building slots in the sector, unless the active player has at least one of their own buildings there. For example, if the purple player played in this slot, these sectors are activated and the player must pay 3 credits to the green player for this sector and to the pink player for this sector. For the last sector there is no payment since the purple player has a workshop there. Now, the bonuses are: if you place a red astronaut, you gain 3 credits for each activated sector from the general supply. If you place a yellow astronaut, you gain the resource depicted in the middle of every activated sector. If you place a blue worker, then for each activated sector, you gain the bonus of 1 adjacent corporation token. So the purple player could gain a tourist from this sector, choose the same token for the second sector and gain another tourist, and finally gain a helium token from the third sector. We have finished with explaining the actions players may take on their turn. On their base, however, players have 3 gold tokens. These can be used to claim 1 gold from each corporation. This is done at the end of one of your turns, and you can claim multiple golds at the same time, provided it's not claimed by an opponent. Every corporation offers a different way to score a goal. Let's check corporations we used in our example. You can claim golds of Artemis tours if you have tourists placed on Artemis cards. At this moment I have 3 tourists, so I could claim this goal and score 8 victory points, or wait until I have 4 and go for the 12 victory points yield. With moon mining, if you have a laboratory in a sector that has a moon mining token, you can score the low tier goal for 4 or 2 victory points. If you have workshops in 2 sectors with different moon mining tokens, you go for the middle tier and score 8 or 6 points. And if you find 3 moon mining projects, you can score a high tier goal for 12 or 10 points. Finally, with Selenium Research, you score a low tier goal if you have acquired 2 experiments, a middle tier goal if you have acquired 4, and a higher tier goal if you have acquired 6 or more. Very important! After you claim a goal, you add additional victory points based on your reputation level. For the pink player, that would be plus 2 victory points as indicated here. So if the pink player claimed this goal, they would gain 4 plus 2, 6 victory points. After all players have no remaining astronauts on their shuttle tile, the action phase ends and you move to the maintenance phase. The maintenance phase has 5 steps. First, you resolve the maintenance step of the selected corporations. For Artemis tours, players must return all visitors they collected during the round back to the corporation board. For each returned visitor, players gain victory points equal to the lowest non-full row of the board. That would be 2 points in this situation, so the green player would gain 4 points and the pink player 8. In the maintenance phase, Moon Mining simply discards all cargo tokens from its board so the spaces can be reused next round. Selenium Research removes from the game all experiment tiles of the current round, places the stack of the next round and fills the 3 spaces with new tiles. The next maintenance step is to retrieve the astronauts placed on the crater. Starting with this space and moving clockwise, the astronaut is awarded to the player that has covered the most building spaces in the row indicated by the space. If there is a tie, the meeple is awarded to the player with majority in the nearest sector. So in our example, the meeple would be awarded to the pink player. As soon as you are awarded an astronaut, you must place it in an empty base space, otherwise the meeple is returned to the supply. You continue likewise until all workers are awarded. In the next step, players collect income. In this step, players reorganize all their astronauts in their base. You may do any number of changes. Then you collect income from corporation bonuses. For example, a player that acquired this experiment token gains 1 titanium on every maintenance phase. Then you gain income from astronauts in your dome spaces. Every red astronaut grants you 3 credits, every yellow astronaut grants you 1 titanium, and every blue one grants 2 victory points. Then you gain income from meeples placed in the headquarters spaces. For each one you gain +1 reputation regardless the meeple's color. After you gain income, you must pay for your maintenance costs in credits. This cost is determined by the level of your reputation and your constructed buildings. The pink player's maintenance cost from reputation is 4 credits. From buildings, the pink player must pay another 9 credits for a total of 13 credits. However, for every yellow astronaut you have in this workshop, you gain a discount of 3 credits to your maintenance cost. Thus, in our example, the pink player must pay 13 minus 6, 7 credits. If you cannot pay the full amount, you pay as much as you can, and then for every missing credit, you move a step backwards in the reputation track. If you reach the bottom, then for each step you cannot make, you lose 2 victory points. Finally, you untap all tapped project cards with the corporation action that was used, and then you discard all astronauts placed in the command action area and you are ready to proceed with the next round. If, however, that was the 3rd round, then you proceed to final scoring. Final scoring has 4 easy steps indicated in this diagram. First, players add to their scores victory points from their acquired projects. These points are indicated on the bottom right corner of each card. Also, cards that have an endgame scoring effect apply it now. For example, with this card, the player gains 1 victory point for every 3 remaining credits. Then players score points for same color workers placed in their laboratory slots. The top lab requires yellow, the middle red, and the bottom blue astronauts. For each of your labs, you score 2, 5 or 10 victory points if you have placed 1, 2 or 3 astronauts respectively. Then you add victory points equal to your reputation level. Here, all players will score the maximum 15 victory points each. As a last step, some corporations award special end-of-game scoring victory points. The ones selected for this video award no such points, so this step would be skipped. The player with the most victory points wins. In case of a tie, the winner is the tied player with the most reputation. If there is still a tie, all tied players share their victory.
And that were the rules of the great Shackleton Base. If you like our videos and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, have fun and play more board games.